Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the IWillAim podcast. Our topic for today is Gen X leader transitioning post career. And my special guest is Joy Levin. Be ready to learn how to turn uncertainty into an exciting new chapter using framework she developed that resonates particularly with Gen Xer. Welcome, Joy.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, so I am a certified professional retirement coach. And like you said, I specialize in working with Gen X leaders, so small business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and to navigate their transition into their post career chapter. So I focus on those who want to design a really fulfilling, purpose driven chapter in their retirement years and want to make the most of what is now commonly thought of as an encore, particularly for Gen X leaders. So my coaching empowers them to clarify what's next, whether it's launching a new business or shifting to a passion project or redefining work and lifestyle on their own terms. So my background is actually in market research and strategy consulting. So from my work in that role, I bring a really inquisitive and results focused approach. I've always been one of these highly curious people. So I've spent over 25 years empowering business leaders to make these high stakes decisions, and I still do that. But over time, I saw that the most meaningful decisions weren't always about the business. They were more personal, especially for Gen X professionals stepping away from full-time roles and asking, what's next for me? So that's where I thought I could use my past experience in a new way. So in my coaching role, I focus on that non-financial side of retirement. So the identity and structure and purpose and legacy. And I empower clients to clarify what that looks like and design it with intention for them. So my goal is to ensure that they feel empowered and confident and excited about this next stage of life and not really overwhelmed by uncertainty.
I'm really excited about having this conversation today. Let's deep dive into the topic right now. Let's start with the first question. What inspired you to focus on your coaching practice on Gen X leader approaching their post career phase?
Yeah. So when I think about it, there were a few things that really came together that influenced me. So first, I'm a Gen Xer, so I understand the unique mindset and values of this generation. I mean, every generation is unique, and Gen X is no exception because we have lived through a lot of these societal and cultural experiences that have really resulted in us in developing a lot of resilience and adaptability. When you think about all the things that we've gone through from the gas lines in the 70s to the AIDS epidemic to the dot-com crashes, all of that, we became really resilient. And so we were also raised to be really independent and resourceful and driven and often balancing career ambition with personal responsibilities. But when it comes to what's next after this long career, many people in my generation find there's just no clear roadmap. They're just these expectations that don't always fit with what they aspire to be. The second thing was my background in market research and consulting that also played a major role because for years I worked with executives to uncover insights so they could make these really data-driven decisions. And in doing so, I've always been, like I said, highly inquisitive and analytical. And now I use that to guide Gen X leaders through the most important transition in their lives, or one of the most important transitions. So just as I continue that market research work to help businesses to find clarity in those complex market landscapes, I also work with individuals to gain clarity on their next steps. And third, I was inspired by my own journey because I know what it's like to transition from an employee to an entrepreneur and then thinking about what's next in life. And each time I experienced firsthand that mix of excitement and uncertainty and reinvention that comes with stepping into a new identity. So I've come to realize that many Gen X professionals who are accomplished face similar crossroads and just need some structured support to create a transition that aligns with their values and their goals.
I think you're absolutely true about that generation of being very resilient and are high achiever. So let's deep dive on the topic of being high achiever. Many high achiever Gen Xer struggled with their identity when they step away from their career. What are some of the common emotional and psychological challenges you see the Gen X are facing as they transition?
Yeah, I think there are definitely some unique ways in which Gen Xers struggle. Many, first of all, experience a loss of identity. They've been, had decades where they're known for their expertise and leadership or business success. And then they wonder, well, who am I without that role? And the second thing is they fear losing relevance. So a lot of them still feel like I have so many years to go. And they do, 30, 40 more years. And they still feel like at the top of their game, but they're worried about being overlooked or aging out of opportunities. And for some, this isn't a fear, right? They have actually had this experience and it's really very frustrating to them. They often want to have a purpose and they don't know how to find it, or they have thought about ways they want to stay engaged and productive, but they're not sure how to get from point A to point B. And also, just the sheer number of choices can be really overwhelming with the extended lifespan and all that we've learned to do. And they can feel this abundance of options really paralyzing, and it makes it harder to decide on the right path. And then many have a sense of guilt or pressure from family situations or those dynamics that people they're close to have their own expectations about what this transition should look like, but those expectations don't align with what Gen Xers themselves want. And one of the biggest things I emphasize is that uncertainty is normal, right? It's just about what's next. It's about who they want to be in this next phase. And my job is to work with them to gain clarity and confidence and a vision that excites them rather than stresses them out.
Follow up on I want to drill down a bit on losing their identity. How do you help them find their identity beyond their career?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different exercises and tools and assessments I use to really drill down into their values, because a lot of those things can get lost when they're involved in their careers and raising a family. It's really easy to lose touch with that and forget about that. And a lot of that is what they really bring to this next chapter and what they want to live out. So we go through a lot of these exercises, and I have created this unique kind of framework that I find resonates especially well with Gen Xers that I can talk about as well.
Okay, now let's go to the framework. Can you kind of describe the framework and how it works and how it helps your client?
Yeah, so it's inspired by the concept of a mixtape, which is something that's so
Mm.
iconic to Gen Xers. Like everybody I knew made mixtapes, I made them. So, in the context of what I do, the mixtape becomes kind of this curated collection of meaningful experiences and lessons and aspirations that shape the next chapter of life. So, it really includes these 5 key phases. And again, it uses that image of a mixtape. So, the first is
Mm.
rewind, right? It's reflecting on what's in the past, what values and what has brought fulfillment in the past. So we identify those patterns in what has energized them or drained them over all of those years. The second phase is to remix. So we explore new possibilities by blending these existing skills with fresh interests. So it could be about reimagining work and lifestyle and purpose in ways that feel exciting and aligned. Then we do a reset where we let go of outdated definitions of success and limiting beliefs, and we work on shifting that mindset from what I used to be to what I want to become. Then we reconnect. We work on strengthening relationships and building new networks. A lot of times, these high achievers really have become so embedded in their professional lives that they haven't cultivated a different set of professional or relationships in their personal lives. So they find they need to redefine their social and professional circles to match these evolving aspirations. And then finally, it's about reviving, about stepping into action with confidence and clarity. So it's about making intentional choices that create a really fulfilling encore life, whether that's entrepreneurship or impact driven work or personal pursuits. So it really ensures my clients don't really just retire, they reinvent.
I love the way you end it. Your client would reinvent themselves. I love the mixtape framework. And in fact, as you go into each of the steps, like that's the 5R. I love the way you use remixing and how you're remixing, how you look at the possibility in the past, what happened, what worked, how you look at resetting. How because resetting is very important. That's the phase where you kind of let go. Like you said, let go of the past and look at the future with enthusiasm and then reconnecting. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Now let's move on to the next question. Using your framework, how does your coaching help client redefine? beyond the corporate title.
Yeah. So for many years throughout their careers, success has been measured by like promotions and influence
Yep.
and financial achievements. But when they step away from those titles, they face this identity shift. Who are they without that executive role or that title or their team or the status? So in the coaching work I do, I empower them to realize that the success isn't about what they did, but who they are and what impact they want to make going forward. So, like I said, we use different exercises and tools and assessments, and we end up focusing on what truly drives them at their core. And we take a very holistic view. So it could be, like I said, mentoring the next generation, or exploring their creative passions, or starting a business, or even mission-driven work. So instead of really chasing that external validation, which they've done for so many years, they end up redefining success on their own terms. So it really leads to a much more fulfilling and purpose-driven next chapter.
It's really refocusing their attention to something else beyond what they used to do. And I love the approach that you're doing, allowing them to kind of figure out what that next identity would be and be able to actually pursue them. I love that you mentioned mentoring because a lot of times that's what being left out of is beyond the things that you want to do, you could give back to the community. And those activities are sort of source of fulfillment in many ways.
Yes, very much. And can become a way of really having a legacy that is very meaningful to you. Yep.
Absolutely. Great point on legacy because at the end of the day, that's one of the biggest source of fulfillment of as
Yeah.
human being is how do you help and make an impact in this world? My next question, in your experience, what are the surprising opportunity or path for Gen X professional who once taken and begun exploring the next chapter?
Yeah, one of the most exciting parts of this work is really seeing these unexpected doors open when they start exploring. So some paths include being like a fractional executive or an advisor, and they find fulfillment in consulting part-time while balancing personal passions. Another is they return to something they used to do in the past, this long forgotten passion that they forgot about, whether it's a corporate executive launching a second career in landscape photography, or a lawyer becoming a wine consultant. And others have been gratified to find a role as a nonprofit leader or doing social impact work. And like we were saying, many Gen Xers want to give back, whether that's through board roles or mentoring or launching a mission driven business. And then some end up creating what you can really call a portfolio life. Instead of having one thing they do all the time, they find that mix, and it could be consulting, volunteering, travel, personal projects, and it creates this really diverse and enriching lifestyle. Essentially, the common theme, I think, is freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. Really having that ability to create this exciting, diverse chapter in their next lives.
It's amazing how you frame it as portfolio life. It's like if you're investing, it's called diversification. And also like the fact that you help them not so much relieve, but revisit the passion that they had.
Mhm.
Often as we were becoming a young adult and turning to be a real adult, there are aspirations that we want to do, but we thought we could explore because it's not going to make enough money, it's not going to be able to provide for family. And it's great that you're opening that window for them to
Mhm.
take a pick in that window and say, hey, you used to love to play piano, might you want to take up piano now that there's no stakes, right? There's no risk. It's pure learning and growing. And love that the way you frame it as the portfolio life, because then you now have a diverse thing you do, not just one thing.
Exactly. It makes life much more exciting. And, your example of a piano, it could be that you took lessons by yourself, but now you can play with a group. Or, you can go, there are pianos all over the place in hotels and you can play there. So there are so many opportunities. It's really figuring out what you did that you loved and reapplying it in today's world.
It creates that awareness that open possibilities,
Exactly.
unlock opportunities. We did talk about a little bit about legacy. How important is building legacy with your client, and how does shape your coaching conversation?
Yeah, for many Gen Xers, legacy is so important. I mean, I think that's true of other generations as well. And it isn't just about, or sometimes has nothing to do with financial wealth. It's about, having impact and influence and how they'll be remembered. And this can show up in our coaching in a few different ways. Like I said, sometimes it's mentorship and knowledge transfer where they work with younger professionals or teach others what they've learned. And I see this rapidly developing area in business where HR leaders are beginning to understand how these experienced adults can help some of these younger adults really capture that knowledge transfer. Sometimes it's storytelling and thought leadership. They want to write or speak or share insights to leave a lasting mark either on their industry or their professional circles. And some shift toward that impact driven work in ways they create really meaningful changes, like nonprofit work or advocacy or even social entrepreneurship. And some are interested in creating a family and community legacy. So they think about how their time and their energies and values will shape the next generation, either through philanthropy or family connections or personal traditions. The conversations we have around legacy often result in clients making choices that are really, really fulfilling, ensuring that their next chapter really reflects not just what they've done, but who they are as people and how that can carry through way long ways into the future.
The way you bring legacy into the equation enable them to make a purposeful decision, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm retired. I'm going to do whatever I want to do for the day. But it becomes, that's why I think it contributes to their legacy, because it opened up that possibility. It unlocked the opportunity when they actually pursue it. It become a more purpose way of actually approaching life, hence creating that legacy. Thank you for creating that opportunity for your
Yeah.
client to live a world better than when they arrived.
Exactly. And it becomes very intentional. Like you said, they sometimes fall into things, but a lot of times there's something they feel really passionate about. And you're right, it is all about leaving the world a better place. Yep.
Some people, when they work with you, they automatically get it, right? But there's some people, they probably stuck in limbo a little bit. How do you help them get through the journey and learn more about the enjoyment that they could attain?
Yeah, first of all, I think part of it is really realizing that feeling stuck is totally normal. This is a major, major transition. So it's really easy to get stuck either because you're overwhelmed by too many possibilities or, you're afraid you'll make the wrong choice. So I find that the key is often starting small rather than waiting for
Yeah.
perfect clarity. So I always recommend they focus on exploration and not immediate answers, right? There's no pressure to get that immediate answer. You can explore, you can commit to small experiments rather than trying to map out the entire next chapter at once. So you could take a course, you could have conversations with people in fields that you're curious about. Like when I remember we were first getting jobs, we did a lot of informational interviewing, and that still goes on today a little bit. That doesn't have to end. You can do it now. Just talk to people who do things you've always been interested in, or you can test out a side project. I think that clarity in the end comes up or comes out. It stems from action rather than like overthinking. So, and I also suggest that people really start like a couple of years before they plan to leave their full-time career. That way they can start the process and be ready to take some steps when the time comes. And then next, I suggest to identify what energizes them, right? When are they in that zone where like you don't even notice time passing? You're really engaged. What were you doing and who were you with and what skills were you using? And those are clues to what can really be fulfilling in the next chapter. And then I think finally, we need to give ourselves permission to be in transition, right? Many high achievers want those immediate solutions, but transitions take time and patience. So it's okay not to have everything figured out right away. The goal is progress and not perfection. And most importantly, it's knowing you don't have to navigate it alone. You can find a coach or a mentor or a trusted peer group that can help you uncover these new possibilities and move forward with confidence.
The concept of exploring is interesting because most of the Gen Xers, they're not, I think, so good at exploring.
Yeah.
They want to get something done and they dive in and they get it done. They're very good in delivering results. So how do you help them learn to explore?
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's a number of things. One, it's really recognizing that you're not going to come to this answer necessarily, in a day or a week. It's really a matter of constant reinvention. So it's a matter of taking some steps forward and then revisiting, every 6 months or every year, every quarter. It varies for different people, but it's really then looking back and saying, okay, where was I? Where am I now? And you may not be now where you ultimately want to be, but you're going to be a lot farther than if you were stuck in that, feeling of overwhelm and uncertainty. So some of it is just constant reassessment. It's that framework we talked about, the whole mixtape framework. It's doing it a number of times. And a lot of times, like I said, it's finding a coach or a peer group that you can bounce ideas off of, because a lot of times people have not had these conversations. And so it's kind of stuck inside, and it helps to get it out and to talk to people, to find a mentor who has retired. What would they have changed? What would they want to do differently? So there's a lot of potential supports out there. It's just a matter of finding the one that's going to work best for you and your unique situation.
Thank you for sharing that. What's the one powerful mindset that a Gen Xer can adapt as they go through this period of uncertainty? And I love that you said the sooner you plan, the earlier plan, the better you're going to be, right? But how do you help people shift their mindset?
Yeah, I think the most powerful shift is we have to move away from what am I leaving behind to what am I moving toward and what will I take with me. So for decades, we looked at success by, these titles and salaries and influence, but now we're talking about something that's personal. So instead of focusing on what's ending, focus on what you're gaining as you move forward into the next chapter. More freedom, the ability to spend your time in ways that align with your core values, and the opportunity to create that impact on your own terms. Uncertainty really isn't a problem. It's a signal that you're on the edge of something new. And so when you see it as that open invitation rather than an obstacle, it really opens the doors to possibilities you may have really never considered. So one question, for example, I love to ask clients is, if you weren't afraid of getting it wrong, what would you try first? And that really kind of invites them to open that door and think about what could they explore without worrying about where it's going to land them or how it will end up.
I like the fact that you actually said what are they leaving behind and what are they right? What are they going through? It creates a sense of excitement.
Exactly.
and and I love the fact that you normalize uncertainty.
Mhm.
Uncertainty is part of the journey, and by seeking help and working with coaches or finding a mentor, it helps you clarify. Might not give you the answer because the answer is different for each and every person.
It is. It's very personal. And I think the other thing to realize is that, if you don't kind of take these steps, you can end up spinning your wheels and wasting a lot of time. And for a lot of people, they end up retiring and then they fail at retirement, or
Yeah.
they, go back to work and they end up doing the same things that weren't really making them happy. They just don't really know what else there is out there or how to kind of piece it together. So I think it's really important, to recognize that it is exciting. There's no question, but sometimes it's not all it's cracked up to be. There's uncertainty. There's this shift in identity. There's new social circles. There's so many pieces. And that's why it can be helpful to have a coach or a mentor or a peer group to navigate through with you.
We covered a lot of topics today. We talk about how to shift mindsets. We talk about your mixtape framework, which is
Mhm.
amazing. I put it in my mind as far. And I love the fact that you allow people to create a portfolio life, right? It not just be one thing. That's not the one and be all for you. But if we have three takeaways from today's episode, what were those three takeaways that you want our audience to remember?
Yeah, I think the three takeaways, first, I think is to remember you're not alone, right? A lot of Gen X leaders feel stuck between what was and what's next. It's really a natural phase, and there's a process that you can move through with confidence. And the second thing I think is that small steps can end up leading to big clarity. Right? You don't have to have it all figured out today. That is something that's so common to Gen X is, I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for it. But, just taking those small intentional actions, conversations, experiments, new experiences, those can all reveal your next direction. And third, really your encore chapter is what I call it. It's yours to design. It's your opportunity to redefine success on your terms. So consulting, passion projects, low impact projects, or something just a new venture. The best encore is one that aligns with your values and aspirations. And we spend a lot of time when I'm coaching on those values. And then I guess one bonus takeaway, the best time to start exploring, like I said, is now. You don't
No.
have to wait. You can really start thinking this through so that you don't have to have a perfect plan. You start with curiosity and take that first step. And then when you are ready to make that transition, you're in so much more of a better place than if you were just starting from scratch.
Well, thank you for sharing all the information related to coaching with Gen Xer. If someone wants to reach out to you and want to work with you, can you share some of the project, website, or anything that they could use to get in touch with you?
Sure. So the best way is you can take a look at my website, which is genxencorelife.com, GenXencore life.com. Or, feel free to hit me up for, we can talk for 30 minutes on a complimentary discovery call at Joy Levin, JLEVIN at genxencorelife.com.
Well, thank you very much, Joy, for being my guest today. I really appreciate you. Thank you and have a good day.
It was a pleasure, Will. Thanks so much.
Thank you.